Okay, here we are, Square Go Podcast. We're live. I hope you like the amazing music there at the beginning. Yeah.
We're not really live, though. As we just established.
We're dead. Okay, and so today's episode, we have the amazing Maureen Hascoet with us. Our first female guest.
Yeah! Oh, that makes me happy. Thank you.
Cool. So Maureen is French originally, and is now here in Scotland.
Originally French. Still French, I think.
But it's funny you said it like that because that's how I say it. I'm like, originally I'm French.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that, Sandy. Where were we? So yeah, Maureen's from France originally, and she's working within the film community and has been, and has moved to Scotland. And I think she's going to shake up the Scottish movie industry. She's done great things already, and even bigger plans. Before we started, we probably should have established what we can and can't say.
Yeah. It's okay, I'll talk about anything you want me to.
Yeah,
We can edit as well.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
We can edit as well. All right. Cool. So do you want to start a bit about how you got into the film industry and where you were? Because I know that you've lived in various different places and then to finally come to Scotland.
It's so good to be here, you guys. It's like a dream come true. Hanging out with the cool kids.
Best podcast in Scotland,
I know, exactly.
hands down.
Definitely. Thank you. So yeah, I'm French originally, and I lived in Brittany, which is where my parents are from. And I don't know if that makes me a Nepo baby, but my dad is a filmmaker, and has always wanted to be one. So yeah. That's how it came about. And so at home, I just loved the kind of people that his project would bring about the table and the set designers. And my parents were really sort of, for a filmmaker, he was actually really conservative.
Okay.
And so the people that would sort of hang about projects and stuff were just high in colors and just, super clever and sensitive and just, all sorts of... sorry. So yeah, I think that's what nurtured my whole persona as a filmmaker, or like wanting to be a filmmaker.
So did you get to spend time on film sets when you were younger?
Yeah, so my dad made a few. So he never made a feature, but I don't know if it's a French thing, but he made like a 52-minute basically, but it's a drama, it's not a documentary, and it was for cinema, it wasn't for TV. And he won a few prizes like internationally, and so, but that was when I was like 3, I think.
Okay.
But after that, he made a few trailers for films that he wanted to make, and so I got to hang out on that. But the main guy who was really influential for me was like in that stage of growing up, right, being a teenager, was actually a guy that I adopted as my grandfather, who was a set designer for the biggest films in France, and he actually was set designer for if you remember that film, The Man in the Iron Mask.
Oh yeah,
with Leonardo DiCaprio and Gerard Depardieu and Jeremy Irons and all that. And so he took me to Disneyland. Me and my sister, we were really friends with his granddaughter. And he just, while he was working, and then took us around. And it was
cool. So
things like that really, when you're a teenager, like that really inspires you. And he got me an autograph for Leonardo DiCaprio. So,
nice. Do you still have that?
I still have that.
Nice. Brilliant.
Yeah. And then, so after that, I always knew I wanted to be in film, but it was a bit more complicated than that. Like, there was a lot of family dynamics and stuff. So I ended up being a teacher.
Right, okay.
Well, actually, I should say, because it might come in handy later on. But so from Brittany, I moved on to Paris, where I was a student at the Sorbonne, which was also very critical in my film education. And because I was in Paris at the same time as I've gone blank. Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
right, okay.
Came out. What's his name?
Peter Jackson.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So I was one of the people who just staked out each and every premiere.
Nice, yeah.
And there was something called the FNAC, which was like Virgin Megastore when that existed.
Yeah.
And they used to do like the first 50 people to, come in at 9 a.m. will get free passes for the conference with, Tom Hanks and, for The Aviator. No, that wasn't, no, sorry, for Catch Me If You Can. And then, with Peter Jackson for, Lord of the Rings, the Two Tower and all of that. So I was always one of the first 50 people to be there, like waking up at 4 a.m. and going like with my croissant, waiting for, those tickets. So that was good. And then I went to London. I became a teacher for 1 year.
What did you
That
teach?
was enough. French and Spanish, modern foreign languages. Yes.
At what level?
Secondary school.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
Yeah.
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 Kids are mean, but especially London kids.
Yeah. What kind of school in London was it? Was it like a...
It wasn't So it was one of those, I don't think the program exists anymore, but basically you would be in classroom from Monday to Thursday. You would teach and have practical experience. And then you would be taught how to be a teacher on a Friday. And so my center was in London, but I was in a school in Peterborough.
Okay.
It's a Jack Hunt School in Peterborough. And we were twinned with, so that you had a buddy. And so my buddy, who's still one of my best friends to this day, was in Cambridge. And she had an amazing school. I think it was like a grammar school. And then the twinning thing meant that she had to come and see me, and I had to go and see her. And when she came to my school, she was like, "How are you surviving that?" You had kids with Tourette's, trying to teach Spanish to a kid with Tourette's,
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. It was a good experience. And then that year, sorry, it's turning out into a whole thing, but that year I'd never known my grandparents, and it just happened that I think the then Minister of Interior changed the law around inheritance and tax, etc. Anyway, long story short, my grandfather, who I'd never met and who had always said he would never meet us, decided to donate us with £30,000 each.
Oh.
So that was a nice phone call to get. And then right away, that was me going to film school. That was my dream. I went to film school in LA, in New York Film Academy, and Universal's
amazing.
backlot.
Oh,
nice.
I was waving at tourists. That was the first. Yeah, it was good.
I was there recently.
I know exactly what I was going to say. I recognize some of the sets. The shark, the Jaws one.
So cool. Have you seen, slightly off topic, have you seen the film Maxine yet?
No.
Because tons of that takes place all in the backlot there. Yeah. Did you know that? Or
No.
no?
No, I didn't know that. But I do. I can see it now that you're mentioning it.
Yeah. Like specifically, it's not like pretending to be actual locations. It's the location is Universal backlot, like the Psycho House and stuff.
I haven't seen it. I've seen Pearl and I've seen X.
Yeah. But it's super cool.
They do amazing things. Like when you're a student there, obviously you have like passes and stuff, and they do the Halloween thing. You get chased around the studios with like guys with like pig heads and like chainsaws. It's the whole thing. But I mean, they know how to have fun.
So how long were you in LA then? How long was film school?
It was a year and a bit. But I'd been before because one of those influential adults in my life growing up was a guy called Elio, who was my godfather, I will say. And so in the lead up to that, every summer he used to bring me, and he was he started off as the dubbing business back before DVDs and everything and like subtitling. And so he got me one of the coolest experience actually before that was going to, I think the first studio I ever went to in LA was Warner Brothers. Do you remember that film Frida? With Salma Hayek playing Frida Kahlo. And so the editor was French, and she had won an Oscar for a film called Zed. And she just let me sit in editing. It was really cool.
And what were they editing with back in them days?
It was big.
Like shuttle jobs.
Big desks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that old, right? But there was no laptops and like Premiere and stuff.
Yeah. Everybody was just cutting film with scissors and cementing it together.
I once almost got a slap from a woman that worked in TV. Wait a minute. Now that I say that out loud, maybe this is happening a lot to me. No, but
you got a slap? Did you say?
Almost got.
Oh, you're right.
Because I said to her that the origins of editing film was originally just for women. It was seen as a woman's job because it was like stitching. Do you know what I mean? So like the early days of film.
Yeah, but I have a feeling you're right.
All editors were female. And this woman took offense to that. And I was like, no, it's a good thing. She was like, where was I going with that? Yeah, so editing. But but then if this was another female as well, then cool.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask was, so were you not tempted in your time in LA to stay in LA and be a filmmaker
the whole thing.
there?
I was there. That was my plan. Once I went, like I was never coming back.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to stay, but it was past 9/11 and all that, and the visa laws were, and I think they still are. But yeah, it was really hard to get a visa. And I went, there's a whole thing, I don't know if you want to know, but one of my friends was like, we want you to stay, let's go to Vegas and get married. And then we actually went to Vegas, and then I chickened out. I was like, you know what, this doesn't feel entirely right, and I loved him for it, but it was and there was something, I don't know how far you want to go into the whole thing, but I felt really lonely at some point, and I didn't expect that to happen because I really loved the place. I loved what I was doing. I loved my friends there, but all of a sudden, like something, I don't know, I got this like existential loneliness, and yeah, so I came back. I came back to London because I'm the one French person you'll meet who doesn't like French cinema. So yeah, that's gonna be fun.
We were going to ask you back sometime as well to talk all about it.
Yeah. That would be a good episode. So yeah.
There you go. Not French cinema in the sense, like most people, when you say French cinema, think about the new wave.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, when I was a student at the Sorbonne, I went to all the test screenings of all the new up and comers, like directors and stuff coming in, and it's so navel gazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so. If I see, like, there was an actress at the time, she was coming up, and she was really beautiful. She was coming from the modeling thing and scene, and I just really remember thinking, if I see another movie of her, whether she's blonde, brunette, or redhead, like, it's just like, no more. And it just felt, I don't know, artificial, and it didn't feel good.
So when is this then? What sort of year are you coming back to London?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I move back slightly to LA a bit?
Yeah.
So am I right in saying where you went to film school?
Yeah.
It was in LA, but it was called
New York Film Academy.
Yeah. So
there's a whole thing. I love it. Whenever I talk about my film school years, you can tell, like, I found a few alumni because we talk about it the same way. Because I don't say USC, I don't say UCLA. I went to film school in LA.
Right. Okay. Right.
And then whenever I say that, you know the people who know, and right away they go, "You went to New York Film Academy?" I'm like, "Yes." And good for them. Like, I like the system. It's the kind of film school where you get in if you can pay the fee, basically.
Right. Okay.
I don't even remember trying USC, though once I was in LA I wanted to. But
so how many establishments are there in LA that are really sort of film schools?
For USC, for film, you really want to go into USC, UCLA, or if you can, AFI, American Film Institute, like that. Okay. But that's really competitive. But USC was amazing. I went I went to their campus a few times, and most people that you now know in LA, like from LA, come from USC.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because there is this whole sort of thing is like people who go to film school and become filmmakers, and then there's the whole sort of crowd that are like, no, film school's bad. I made it without it. But I
was going to ask. I think it's more just for the networking opportunities.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that's why it would have made sense for me to stay, because that's exactly right. Film school, the whole value really is in the teacher, in the network that you have, and in the opportunities coming out of that. So, yeah, I'll zoom forward to after, but whenever I'm being asked about, like, should I go to film school, there are two things that I would say. The first thing is know yourself. Like, I was the kind of person, I needed the reassurance of film school. I was the kind of person, I could never just pick up a camera and go. Because also, I don't think I'm that kind of filmmaker, or I wasn't at the time, and I needed the reassurance. I was very, I was coming from the French education system. I was very in my head. I was very, I was an A student my whole life.
Okay.
So I needed that kind of structure to see me through. Not everybody, I don't know if you would need that. Not everybody needs that.
Yeah.
So, and it put me in a lot of debt. It was a lot of money. So would I do it again? I still think I would have needed that kind of opportunity to sort of get my confidence and know myself. And it was an amazing experience, and some of my best friends are still from that time. But because I didn't stay and build on that network, a lot of that value then sort of disappeared.
Yeah.
So would you say that was kind of like imposter syndrome?
What do you mean?
So I think I suffer from that quite a lot. So these guys went to film school.
All right.
I'm new to. I only started photography in my 30s. So anytime I walk onto a film set, I feel like I'm not meant to be there. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, that's quite common.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at the brochure for New York Film Academy, and I was like, okay, I'll go and study cinematography. And then I got to the price, and I was like, in another life, maybe.
Yeah.
You need a benefactor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I'm kind of, I suffer from that. I don't know if that's something you relate to.
Well, no, totally. I think a lot of, like, I still suffer from, like, but it depends, I think, the mindset. Like, I suffer from that because I went to film school, and my whole, like, my family, my dad and everything was like, you're not a real, if you're a real filmmaker, you don't need film school,
Yeah, did he do film school,
win.
or was he kind of
no,
self-taught?
he was totally self-taught.
Yeah.
Self-taught, but, like, he ended up hanging out with, like, the big Western spaghetti, like Sergio Leone, right? So he hung out with Sergio Leone, and with, so yeah, these guys didn't go to film; they made the film school. Do you know what I mean? Like it was, So it depends, I think, on your, on your background and whatever you make that mean for yourself. But I get it, like, I think. But for me, I needed that structure if it was just for a year. But then I felt imposter syndrome because I wasn't at USC and I wasn't at UCLA, so there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, you can't win.
I mean, LA's, it's kind of a strange place, I find. Like the first time I went, I was on tour with the band, and I could be anywhere else in the States, and people hear my accent and go, oh, wow, you're Scottish, I'll buy you drinks all night, and they're like super nice and everything, and like, everywhere I went, and it was like that. And then LA, it was just like cold shoulder. It was like, what's up with everybody here? Or, it was just like everyone seemed a bit jaded and no one gave a shit. And then it became the age-old thing. It was like, oh, every waiter is a screenwriter. It's like everybody goes there to make it in the movie industry or music industry and doesn't quite make it, so everyone seems a bit cold. And then, so I didn't like it at first compared to the rest of America. And then every time I went since, I knew what to expect. And I grew to like it more and more because I knew what it was like. And then I grew to really like it. And then last time when we were there, I didn't really find it was like that at all. It wasn't that as cold as what it was. The people anyway, and the attitude. But what struck me is just like, as big and sprawling as it is, it's small in the sense that you're speaking to people and like, oh, I'm working with blah 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 and blah blah blah, and off the back of that, someone else is like, is this just normal for LA? Do you know what I mean? Like you are working with the stars essentially, or I was going to say has-beens. That's a bit harsh, but like a star of yesteryear. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be more common.
Who's gettable for us is not the same as who's gettable for someone in our position in LA.
Yeah, totally.
But I feel like that in Scotland, even the movie scene that we have here, the one that we're trying to build. Like the minute you start doing it, you're immediately part of that community and you start working with people. I mean, first feature we ever made, we were standing on set with like Clive Russell and Irvin Welsh and stuff. And so
it
happens even at this level.
Yeah, totally. But I do think these things, it's a bit of a gradual process. I think it's not just all of a sudden, oh, right, you're here and doing that. And it's like, wow, you know what I mean? There is a sort of build up to it. So I don't know if you felt the same,
Yeah, from just bouncing off what you were just saying, I think what I felt in LA was exactly like you, like everyone and their neighbor wants to be in the film industry. And as a foreigner, I really felt like there's so many people that you need to be called to LA to make it. Like, so basically you need to make from wherever, I got that feeling that wherever you're from, you need to go back and make it there and then sort of rise through the ranks, and then if you get big enough, let the LA comes to you. But I got that maybe it's changed since then, right? And there seems to be a big shift happening in LA right now with the exodus towards, like, is it Nashville or there's
Texas,
Nashville
Austin.
and Texas, and because we were speaking to people out there about it, and a big thing was the tax break in Texas, like they don't have to pay this, that,
and
that,
artistic freedom of speech as well.
Right.
Like, I think LA's become famously very controlled in terms of freedom of speech in Austin. Everyone's going to Austin. Well, the stand-up comedy scene basically moved during COVID, just moved to Austin. So I'm guessing films are following suit. So did you think, where's the place that would be the hardest to be a filmmaker and think I'll move there and come to Scotland? Or
That was a whole process, you know. So when I arrived in London in 2007, I was back in love with London, and that was my place, and I was never going to leave. And no one is from London, so I really felt at home. And I met my husband like pretty much right away. He's from Colombia, so we were in Little Colombia, if you like. Like all of a sudden, I started hanging out with all those Colombian people. And I found a job in Ealing Studios as I started at the Met Film School, working for the Met Film School, which is in Ealing Studios. And I loved the Met because it started as a production company. So we've got Met Production, which is doing amazing things right now. It's really coming up. And then so on the second floor, you had the production company. On the third floor, you had the post-production company, Met Post. And on the ground floor, you had the film school. And so I just loved that idea that everything was integrated and you had a clear path there.
I nearly went, well, I didn't nearly go there, but that was the one real film school that I looked at when I was doing my degree, because they did an MSc. And I was getting towards the end of third year of my degree, and I just thought, I can't afford to live in London. I can't afford to pay for the course. And I just didn't want to do another like couple of years of full-time education. By that point, I was sick of it, and I just wanted to come home and make movies, basically. But that was the one London Met. I remember, reading a lot of the course materials and stuff. But this is like a long time ago. This is about 2000.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow!
I'm old.
No, did they exist back then? Wow.
Yeah, there was an MSc in filmmaking. And that was about the only one in the country. So at that time, you couldn't really do anything film related other than kind of general media courses, which were very, very practical, but very kind of video focused and, just scattergun approach for radio production, music production, print media, multimedia, it's just kind of everything. And then if you wanted to specialize, you would do like a master's in filmmaking or something. So I looked at New York as well, but that was a pipe dream.
Sorry.
I was going to say, but then we made it. We went to New York to make a movie.
That's true. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Took time, but we got there.
I think the point is there's no one fast and true method.
Sure.
But also you can beat yourself up, I think, thinking it has to be this way or it's not going to happen. And, it's not worth, it's not worth doing something that you're going to, like choosing a path that you're going to be miserable on just to get to the place where you think you're going to be happy, But yeah.
That's very wise in your old age.
Yeah.
Totally. Met Film, out of all the film schools in London, I really liked the vibe at Met Film. And it felt real because it felt that then you could go and make movies, and I don't know, there was just good vibe. And it was in Ealing Studios.
Yeah.
So actually before like finding it, I ended up just through sheer luck, because in the beginning I crashed at a friend's place in London, and then ended up finding, I still didn't have a job after a month, and he was like, dude, like it's been a month. I'm like, I know. So I ended up finding this deal, I guess. It was the manager of a theater in Ealing, just across the street from the studios, was gay and was single parent to 2 kids who were vegan and homeschooled, and needed someone to look after the kids when he had them 2 weeks a month. And so against accommodation. I ended up finding myself a free room in Ealing across the street from the studios against 2 weeks of my time per month. So I got that for for almost like, I think more than half a year. And that was really cool. So then it was the days of the cyber cafes. So because I was across the street from Ealing Studios, every day I would go to the cyber cafe and then send my CV to all the companies in Ealing Studios. And after about 6 months of that, I got one email back one day from Chris Jones, who's the author of the Guerrilla Filmmakers Handbook.
Okay.
which I just happened to read during my film school year, like the year before. And he sent me an email back going, "Look, thank you for your CV. I've got it. I like it. I don't have anything for you, but come for a coffee and we'll talk." I'm like, great. I'm in. So I went in and had a coffee, and Chris is an amazing ambassador for new talent and giving people opportunities and everything. So he's like, "Look, I don't have anything for you." At the time, he just made a short film called Gone Fishing that was actually longlisted for an Oscar. And so he was like, "Can you help me with the festival strategy and sending it everywhere? And that will give you experience. You can put that on your CV and all that." I'm like, great. And when I was there, he was like, "Look, you're a woman, you're French. There are 3 French women working at the Met Film School." So I'm like, okay. So he was like, why don't I introduce you to this manager? And if you buy her coffee for the interview, if you just bring her coffee, I'm sure you'll get the job. So I did that. I turned up to the interview with coffee, and she gave me the job.
Amazing.
Exactly. Sometimes, they say if you give somebody a warm drink.
So at this point, were you just looking for a way in terms of so it wasn't like I'm deliberately targeting producers' roles or directors' roles or
anything. No, I was just looking. I knew that I was outside Ealing Studios for a reason, and I just wanted in at that point, anything. And so I started as an assistant, I think, for a program, and they were I think they were on the cusp of having their biggest intake ever. So within 3 months, I was program managing. And that means, hiring all the resources, the like actors for workshops and all of that. And that was amazing, because then I made a short film with Natalia Tena, who's in Harry Potter and lots of other films.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, that's right. Yeah, she's Asha, the wildling in Game of Thrones. So, it gave me great opportunities, because if you give people jobs, then they kind of want to give something back. And so she was like, I'll be in your short film.
Nice.
So, it helped me sort of build and meet amazing people. Gollum. I met Gollum.
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis.
Oh, wow,
the Imaginarium moved into Ealing Studios. And that's the thing, because that will be another thing that I'll talk about in a minute. But something magical happens in studios that are allowed to have that ecosystem of, permeability between students and the Imaginarium. And, there were other VFX companies there and, editing. And there's something just really cool that happens, like in Ealing Studios. So you had, I think at the time, 2 or 3 sound stages, and so we would just randomly bump into Cillian Murphy and Harry Potter, like all these guys, and all of a sudden it's just, as a creative in the film industry, that is part of it, I feel. And for me, it was just, it inspired me, I guess, to stay in and to keep working and grafting. And
So within the Ealing Studios, you're saying there's different companies. So it's not all just Ealing Studios, and there's different sort of parts of it. They're all literally separate companies.
Yeah, they're tenants basically. And one of the other tenants was Chris Jones, who had a production company, and also was just started, as I was probably 3 years after I started Ealing Studios, set up the London Screenwriters Festival. And so from the beginning, I was involved in that and helped him with that, and sourcing speakers and, putting together sessions that I felt were relevant and everything for the industry, and then helping him deliver that. So after 5 years at Met Film, I decided that there was nowhere else for me to go, and I just needed a new adventure. And I gave my notice, found out I was pregnant. And then went to Chris. It was like, this happened. It was like, come and work for me for a year. So 2 weeks after I delivered a baby, I was delivering the London Screenwriters Festival.
Oh, right.
So
wasting 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
Wasting no time.
No, wasting no time. And then the headliner on that day was on that year for the festival was Joe Esterhaas, who wrote Basic Instinct. Amazing guy, great stories. So it was, again, I was feeling inspired and but festivals, like, you do that for, like, he couldn't really keep me for a year, so we came to an agreeable parting. And then I became an agent for a company called Blueberry creatives for another 5 years and represented editors and motion graphic designers and created their director's pool.
Okay.
And that was my life in London.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Before we get to Scotland, is Scotland next?
Scotland is next.
Okay, cool. Because it sounds like...
I know, it's like, when are you getting to Scotland? I know, but I feel like I needed to establish that.
Totally. Because it sounds like what you were doing in London has sort of led to what you've started doing now here in Scotland.
Yeah, without realizing it. See, there is no path.
Yeah.
Just the path appears as you walk it.
In tandem with this, you went to start your own Are we allowed to
talk about it?
All right.
If they sue, they won't sue.
As much well, that's the thing, Like, I've got a
They
lawsuit.
wouldn't sue you, they would sue me. So.
I've got a lawsuit against me. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but you guys could.
Oh, really? Sandy, we need to talk.
Where was I?
I think it was you, Sandy, the first time that you started speaking, you talked about the film community, or was it you? You mentioned the word community, and I was almost going to say industry, but then you're right. There is no industry in Scotland.
Yeah,
I feel
there's a community, but it's not
there's
an industry.
exactly. Yeah. And what's missing for me, what I can see, is that connective tissue, and that's effectively what I'm trying to build, or to put together or foment or nurture, or however you want to call it. But it's the connective tissue. People have got to start talking and working together, and in many levels, like, they do, but there is no structure that allows to systematize that I think then caps the level of what is available in Scotland and in the potential. Studios. Well, I came to Scotland February 2019. I came to Cumbernauld because I wanted to work on Outlander, and the ad said within commuting distance of Cumbernauld, so I googled Cumbernauld. It's like, here we go.
Do you know the age-old saying of Cumbernauld?
What's it called?
Okay, you really are Scottish.
Yeah, getting there. Honorary.
She googled it. That'll be the first thing that appears on Google, I think.
Exactly. I never got the job on Outlander, but what that allowed me, that wasn't my path, but what that allowed me to do was look at how, basically I felt comfortable moving to Scotland and to Cumbernauld because there was a studio. And I was like, even if I don't get the job on Outlander, I'll find a job in Ward Park Studios. And off we go. And then I realized, those doors are closed, but like, shut, locked, and they threw away the key. And I didn't understand why. And then I started looking into the scene, the studio scene in Scotland. So at the time, 2019 to 2021, you only had 3 studios really. You had Ward Park, locked for Outlander, and you have First Stage in Leith in Edinburgh, which is spearheaded
the
by
rig there and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Jason Connery. That's the one studio that's backed by Screen Scotland. And then you had Bathgate Pyramids, which was kind of coming about for Good Omens. And that was really it. That was in terms of studios that could potentially build that connective tissue, right? That had the infrastructure to potentially harbor, those tenants, like kit rooms and all of that. Those would be the 3 ones that you would see. And then I started seeing discrepancies, things like, when you look at the Screen Scotland brochure for Build Space, Ward Park is not on it. Like, why is Ward Park not on it? Anyway, so I started looking at all those things, and I don't know why, but anyway, I started at the same time. And sorry, life is just different layers, so I have to say about this. But because I didn't get the job on Outlander, I ended up in Cumbernauld not knowing anyone. I moved to Scotland with 0 contacts. Yeah. I was like, let's do this. Men in kilts and, Braveheart, why not? Let's go live the dream. And all of that. And then ended up in Cumbernauld. So I ended up, my daughter was going to school, and I ended up in Carbrain, which is one of the 9 poorest areas in Scotland in terms of child poverty. And I was coming from Richmond. We had a tiny apartment in Richmond, but I was bumping shoulders with Tom Hardy. So going overnight, literally from Richmond to Carbrain, was a very visceral experience. And then you have like shopping trolleys discarded in the street and all of that. And I don't know, I just needed felt like I needed to do something. So I started interacting with the community and with the PTA, and became a bit too much for the PTA, so they sent me on to the community council. And all I could hear was, who are you to think you can change anything? It's never going to change. It's always been that way. Why would it be any different, because you do anything? And so I started thinking about this, what on my level can I do to help shift things? And Chris Jones had held a TEDx event, TEDx Ealing, the TED Talks. So whenever there's an X at the end for TEDx, it means that it's a TED-approved event, but run by a community, basically independently run by a community. So I applied for TEDx Commonwealth, and then I saw that there was a women events. And in my mind, if you heal the woman, you heal the home. If you heal the home, you heal the community. So I was like, let's go for TEDx Commonwealth Women. What's it called? So I ran the first one, and that's important because I started posting as the talks were approved. I started posting in January 2020 on my LinkedIn, and I started having interactions with Terry Thompson, who then owned Ward Park Studios. He started liking my stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, I know who you are. You know who I am. Let's have a conversation. Then COVID happened. But in October 2020, we had a conversation. And I started talking to him about opening up Ward Park beyond Outlander, basically, so that there was a little bit that was left for the grassroots talent, for the independent talent that was coming through, and independent productions and everything. And I understand why they would keep the doors closed, and Outlander has such a massive impact. But for me, on the other side of that gate, I could see that Commonwealth has benefited on no level at all of having Outlander there. So I wanted to sort of storm the gate a little bit. And you know what? Terry was, he could see it. He was open to it. And he was like, fine, I'll give you carte blanche. And I'm French, so carte blanche.
Yeah, you're allowed to use that.
So I kind of went for it, and I ended up going after different productions, trying to show them. I realized, it's a long story, but I realized there was one soundstage that was out of contract with Sony for a period of time. So it was like, that's my window. So I went out and shopped that stage around, basically, and started swimming with the sharks, basically, because I was alone, unprepared, completely naive, just seeing the opportunity, and why, if I can see the opportunity, why would no one else want to come and play? And then realizing that there were so many different dynamics at work with, different factions of the film industry in Scotland. And I was there and coming to, had opportunities that people who had been trying for 10 years couldn't really get to for different reasons. I'm very conscious of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, but there was so I brought a production and then started negotiating it, and then Terry sort of all of a sudden kind of cut me out of that conversation, and I never really understood why. And it felt at the time like we kind of started chatting like 2 years later. So at the time it felt really raw, and I didn't understand why. And I was really like, I came to Scotland to build something. I can't be so I should say my husband has Huntington's, which is the reason why we moved from London, because our life in London was no longer sustainable. And we found out just after the birth of our second child. So I am not playing for a job. I'm not playing for a cap on my life. Like, I'm here to help change things positively and leave a legacy for my children. That's the idea, basically. At the time, him taking that away from me felt really raw. And that explains then why I was like, do you know what? I can see what a studio needs to be in Scotland, and I can see how none of the other studios are doing what I think they should do. So it'll take however long it takes, but I'm going to set up my own studio. And I started pitching Pioneer Film Studios. And at the beginning, I was going to build, because to this day, Scotland doesn't have purpose-built studios. So I went down to England, and I met up with Stage 50, who build studios in 4 months. Wow. Like from the time you find a fairly leveled field with access to a motorway somehow. To the time they give you, the keys, it's 4 months. So it was impressive. Their main client is Amazon. And I ended up connecting with Andrew Buckley, who's a really nice guy, who's a major location manager and was a shareholder in Stage 50. And we started chatting. And that time when you're on benefits in your kitchen in Carbrain and having that conversation, going, so how much are your sound stages? Well, how much are we talking about? I don't know. You tell me. I'm like, well, we start at 2 million. I'm like, yep. Is that a big number? I always remember Andy asking me like, is that a big number? Is that a scary number? That's what he said. I'm like, you know what? At this point, it's just a number.
Yeah.
It tells me how much I need to go and find.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I want 3 sound stages, one of that size, like how much? Anyway, it came up to £15 million. Like, okay, let's get to work. And I started putting together a pitch. At that time, I was also guest lecturing at New College Lanarkshire, and it was COP26 in Glasgow.
Oh yeah.
And they wanted me they knew I had some event experience, and so they wanted me to run an event in central Glasgow. I was like, great, I'm going to use that for them, which will be good for the students, but also I'll invite investors. Mm-hmm. And so I asked Stage 50, it was like their whole thing is about sustainability, building sustainable stages. So I'll ask them to come, do a pitch to the students. It'll be amazing for the students, and I'll bring investors. Mm-hmm. So I had an investor
Nice.
coming, was blown away by Stage 50. And then I really started going to work. But that's the thing where for me, it kind of everything began to sort of unravel, and I can only say that now because it's at that point that I stopped believing in me, and I went to someone else for the business plan. Mm-hmm. And as a creative, the imposter syndrome that you were talking about, in my mind, I'm a creative and I have no business doing business. And
this is when the number got scary.
It's exactly right. It's when every steps of finding those numbers, how those numbers work, that's exactly when they got scary. Mm-hmm. And that's when I lost my own power. And that's when I sort of like, I'll be the creative, I'll go network and find those productions and, be the face of it and the impulse and the source of it. But I can delegate the business side of it to people who know more. And I still think, right, stick to your strength and know your own weaknesses. So I still think that there was something in that. Like I believe in delegation and on, teamwork and finding people who are better at what you need to do than you if, they can be part of the team. So I went to my accountant and started working on the numbers and it looked good. And, it was the boom at the time. Everyone was looking to get into studios. Yeah. So we had favorable winds and...
this would be post-COVID, so streaming was
2021.
Going
Yeah,
right
exactly.
through
Exactly. Everyone needed space, basically. So, end of 2021. So I felt like, I had my investor, I had a business plan now, and it was looking good. And then, long story short, she brought more people in, and there was a conversation about shares, and my shares got diluted. Okay. And I didn't have the awareness or the knowledge, or I was so caught up in seeing it happen. I could see it happen. I was like, when we're there, everything will sort itself out. It's like being unhappy to get to the happy place. Yeah, it was exactly that. And it was like, fine, I'll compromise and I'll do some things were feeling weird and red flags all over, but I chose to ignore them. And so initially we were going to build, but then we hired a location manager to find us fields in the beginning. But then at the end of the week with him, said, you know what, there's an already a standing place that would make an amazing film studio. And he took me there, and it was Buchanan Business Park in Steps. Okay. And he took me up the tower, and it was like, it already looked like Warner Brothers. Like all that was missing was the freaking tower, the water tower, you know? Yeah. You had the 9th floor tower where you could have the production offices. You had the two-story wings where there was more space for. I wanted on my plan, one of the first partners that I had was Tom Hardy's wife, Charlotte Riley, who had set up Wonderworks, a childcare facility, amazing for adapted for film people.
Oh, nice.
And they're in Warner Brothers in Leavesden. And so Charlotte came on board, so she was going to have one of the spaces, and then I had big plans. Anyway, so there was a backlot, like lots of yard space for unit bases, and all the sound stages were, needed work, but were like standing basically. Like it was 20,000 feet, like 30,000 feet, like square footage. Sorry. It was perfect. It was, tall ceilings. Anyway, so yeah, within a few months, basically in February 2022, we moved in. We had a deal with the owner, and we moved in. And then I focused on finding productions to come in, basically, and setting up that hub for creatives and for those companies to come in and be tenants, kind of recreating Ealing Studios, really. That vibe, that vibrancy, and that permeability that I could feel there. And then, so my main focus was bringing Crime Series 2 by Buccaneer.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I feel like my nose is running. Yeah. It is cold in here.
Oh, it's freezing.
Sorry.
It's freezing. I'm trying not to shiver.
We've got two heaters
We
on.
need to give you this chair like this.
So
Crime was with our local hero, Dougray Scott, is that right?
That's right, that's great. But what I could see was I was following his career, and I could see that he wanted to come back to Scotland, and he wanted to give back, and he's been very active on Scottish screens, from Vigil. He had a big role in Vigil after that, and recently I've just seen him in The Crow something by Buccaneer again. So he has a partnership with Buccaneer.
Okay.
And Buccaneer wanted to open Buccaneer Scotland. And so it felt like there was a sort of golden triangle happening. And the studio the location they were using for the Series 1 had shut down. So it was an easy sell. And they came to see us, and they were like, yeah. So started working with them, and that was a cool experience. But then in the summer, relationship was very fraught within the team. There were many different issues, but in my mind it was like growing pain, basically. Rosy glasses and everything.
Yeah.
And then summer, my dad had a heart attack in France, and I was like, I've been working nonstop for like 2 years, and the kids haven't seen their grandparents in a while, and all of that. So I was like, I'm gonna take a week, and I'm gonna bring my family to France and come back. And we did that. And when I came back, I knew something was up. Something was wrong. The chat had gone quiet, and I ended up coming to like a Dragon Den style board meeting,
right? Okay. Yeah,
kind of like 4 people in front of you and just the one seat, and basically they tried to buy me out. And there is no, like, none of them were from the film industry, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
because
there is no amount of money that could have bought me out of this. And this was like, the healing process was so long and fraught, because I had literally put my heart and soul into this, and I have gone so far out of my comfort zone, and I grew so much, and I got so much out of it. But there was they were not throwing around crazy amounts of money by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But there was also no amount of money that could have bought me out of that. So it became very hostile very quickly. Swimming with sharks.
Yeah, but it seems to me like, and as a result, it has failed.
It was a long legal process, and then turned out I had to sell my shares in February 2023. And then very quietly, just before Christmas 2023, so less than a year after I sold my shares, they announced they were closing down. They didn't announce, they just filed for closure.
Did they get any work?
They got Night Sleeper, but from, that's on BBC right now. That was already happening. Like, there were already conversations when I was there. Then this is just speculation, but I would think that the writers' strike kind of was a nail in the coffin for them. I mean, look, they didn't start off with a great reputation. I kind of, everyone knew in the industry that it was mine. Like, I was the beating heart behind Pioneer.
Yeah.
So for them to do something like that, and then, so Pioneer failed in the end.
Do you know what is there a future for Pioneer? Could it reopen? Or?
Could it reopen? So when they failed, it meant that I was out of my non-compete, because I had a non-compete for 2 years, and so I was let out of that a year early. So all of a sudden, the world reopened.
Yeah,
I was like, "What?" I'm instinctively led by what Scotland needs, or what I think Scotland needs from the industry. And when I looked at it, really, things had changed by 2024, beginning of 2024. First of all, there was a slowdown in productions coming in. And there was another studio that has popped up that deserve the world of credit, called Night Sky Studios. Yes.
Yeah, we took me in Sandy. Yeah. So cool.
Those guys are doing amazing work and proper leaders, and very inclusive. And so I don't think what Scotland needs right now is another studio. I do think that where I can have a positive impact is in keeping on building that connective tissue. This is why the Scottish Screenwriters Festival came about in April 2024, because there is no Screenwriters Festival in Scotland, and the idea of nurturing talent, bringing us all together, trying to bridge the gaps between the community and the industry, and building those milestones. I think that's where I want to spend my energy. In creating that ecosystem that exists in Ireland, in other countries, other nations, but doesn't quite seem to have
taken root. Yeah.
Exactly, in Scotland.
Why, as an outsider looking in, why would you say that is?
So it's a mixture of things, right? I think Screen Scotland has focused on bringing productions in, which is one of the two legs that you need to run on, but has then completely seemed to disregard and any nurturing of
stuff,
exactly. That's definitely the second leg that you need, because it's all coming to a head right now. Like, I don't know if you've seen Peter Strachan, who is now taking on the whole traitors thing, because the traitors are considered a commission from Scotland in terms of the remit that the BBC has to commission from the nations. Even though when you look at it, there is no talent from above the line in from Scotland.
Yeah.
So like, filmed in Scotland doesn't mean filmed by Scotland.
That's exactly right. It's the same with Outlander. Outlander has had an amazing impact in terms of keeping people in jobs, but at what levels? And it's done an amazing thing for tourism, but I don't see any filmmakers that's come out from so that's one of the things.
So the funding models and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but access to funding, and I don't think it's ever been great, but I think it's definitely worse in the last few years, because the amount of money the government's given to like Screen Scotland has vastly reduced. So they've reduced the scope of what they're investing in. And I've read about the numbers that the councils will say these big Hollywood productions are bringing in. So they arrive and they talk about the millions that are coming in. And really what they're talking about is the amount of budget that the films say that they're spending on production. But that money's not going directly into the area.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily going into hire crew. It's not benefiting businesses. And a lot of times businesses are getting some money to shut so that people can film on their street, but it's not really covering what they would have made and stuff. So
we've experienced another thing as well for making The Goodman, that
the Outlander effect.
The Outlander effect. With access to locations, there's no differentiation between an independent film and a Hollywood film. So when we turn up to a museum that will go unnamed and ask them, can we use your location for 3 hours, they hit us with a Hollywood. They have one tier, I know in Hollywood they have a different tier for lower budget productions. So they say, okay, you're not Warner Brothers or you're not Legendary, so if you're in indie or whatever, you can and you can prove that by your budget. They'll say, okay, we'll let you have it for this. And it's still money for them. It's still revenue. So and without tooting our own horns, we show them a trailer of our stuff, and they think, oh, that looks high level.
Yeah.
give us more money. You know
I'm going to probably have to have this awkward conversation with everywhere that did give us free access or give us very charitable access to places. So when they see the trailer, they're going to say, "Wait a minute, you told us this was this was shot on a shoestring."
It's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah. And it was.
I mean, as you know, one of the sort of fest things we were at, and Ian's clip was highlighted, and the whole place was just like, that's just one guy doing all, and everybody thought it was legit a big studio making Goodman. So
you wouldn't be able to do it with a big studio in Scotland because you wouldn't get access to all these places. It would cost you an absolute fortune.
That's one of the areas that I always felt Screen Scotland should be helping indie filmmakers is access to locations, because I know they do location services, but for me, London metropolitan area had very quick laws about what you can and can't do in terms of like tiny crews, filming handheld and stuff like that. So you just need to galvanize these laws and get these policies out. And if they're accepted by councils, they're accepted by metropolitan areas, they're accepted by national parks, because national parks in America are doing this now as well. They're recognizing this kind of the difference between creators, content creators or whatever, and big productions. They're saying, okay, it's a different footprint. We don't need to be quite so tight on these people accessing our natural areas.
So North Lanarkshire has just come out, I think, a couple of years ago with a filming charter.
Okay.
But that's interesting because when it came out, I think the fact that they have it is great. It has sort of guidelines like, if you shot in North Lanarkshire, you're not allowed to speak badly of North Lanarkshire, things like that, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
And yet...
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah.
So you hear, again, I come back to Outlander because I do have a deep love for the project, but it's even people on Outlander have been talking down on Common Old, and I just why that there is an amazing department for film and TV at New College Lanarkshire, just less than a mile down the road, and those guys don't have the opportunity to go and see in LA. World Park Studios would have billboards the size of football pitches with Jamie and Claire and Through the Stones, the romance through times. You would see that when you go by on the M8. There's nothing. It looks like an IKEA, which is on purpose. I get it, but I don't know. It's just there's again some kind of connective tissue that seems to be missing. And I'm not sure. I know why on their side, but I don't know what can be done on our side to push for that. I don't know how far you want to go, but I get really passionate when I talk about these things. They've just done season 8, and there's a prequel that's on the way that started already. I think first season of the prequel is done.
Blood of
My Blood. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Duncan yesterday, who has done some work.
But basically, all of the sets and all of the costumes and all of that, that's already, I know, getting shipped to America. So why are we not having a Game of Thrones style studio experience? And it doesn't have to be in World Park Studio, but it could be across the road or, somewhere in Common Old doesn't like any kind of structure, big structure where you could have a visitor center and then, harness all of that tourism that's coming through for Outlander.
Yeah.
Why, and I don't know where that needs to come from. If it's Screen Scotland not honoring or valuing what we have, and is it the community that doesn't know what's just down the road? Is it MPs? I don't know. I've tried a few different things.
I mean, there's an angle that it is systematic keeping Scottish stories down.
Yeah, absolutely. But
it starts to feel like that after a little while.
So how do we challenge that?
Well, I guess in a way you already have and have started that, with your Screenwriters Festival and your regular night that you started doing in Glasgow. Most notably...
That sounded dodgy. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I would, but I'm just trying to remember the official name.
Circle.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Most notably recently with Peter Mullen.
Yeah.
And him being quite vocal about all these things and about supporting the, I guess, not even the underdog, just Scots.
Yeah.
It's just Scots within Scotland not getting support to make movies is
Yeah, he was very clear about like working class stories are not being told, and people are being encouraged not to tell them.
Yeah, I mean,
really strong statement.
I mean, even recently, a few years ago, I was approached by a certain broadcasting station, quite a major one, and they were going to do something about a project I was involved in, and then they changed the goalpost completely, and I was like, oh, that idea's lame. And then they found out my age, and they were like, oh, you're too old. And I'm like,
oh, you're joking.
Right. And
joking.
Then, no. And then very recently, Ian, myself.
I can feel a cut coming.
No, I'm gonna hold. I'm gonna rein it in.
Hold fast.
Gonna rein it in. I'll try. A third party was putting something out there about work we are doing, but a certain angle, and
I think the message was that they're not making decisions about what they think is going to engage with audiences. They're making decisions based on other reasons, and it seems like, yeah, I think I felt this way about Screen Scotland and things for a long time. Is about if you don't nurture the industry, or you don't nurture the audience as well for these films, then you're going to end up just with nothing really. The job really is to kind of keep this little bit of fire burning, and do that by investing in lots of productions and getting lots of stuff. But yeah.
very tactful interception there.
Yeah, you're totally diplomatic.
Totally stopped me from going to rant on the beep beep bunch of.
But you have
beeping,
to you have to make that decision occasionally to say this is going to engage with an audience. This is going to be good. This is good, strong cultural output. And if you make the decision based on the quality of the content, just every so often, then you will end up with these little diamonds, and that's what helps keep that fire burning.
It's the fact that they said that this is a great idea.
Yeah,
but they will not.
It doesn't achieve the balance that they need. Is what the words that were used.
Yeah.
But also, we have a very small pool to play with, so it's not hard to guess what broadcasting station that was, because there's only 2 in Scotland, really.
Yeah.
So that's...
I'm not favourable with either of them. I used to work for one as well.
Yeah.
Well, the idea, I think, is to, like, with any kind of sustainability in terms of ecosystem, so what I'm trying to do right now is, there is money in Scotland, right? I've seen it. Like, I have no doubt that there is money, and I think culture needs to, and the cultural sector and creative industries need to advocate for themselves a bit more. And this is why this is amazing, podcasts and talking and just creating that momentum. So outside of the 2 stations that we know, what can we do to come together and harness that, become a real investment proposition, and investing in the culture sector in Scotland. So basically what I'm pitching right now is effectively a Scottish Netflix. So creating an app, a content app, and that's a dirty word at the moment, is content, but that would, I guess, aggregate, and license already existing Scottish content, but also inject that little bit of seed investment in the beginning. And sometimes we don't need a lot, because also what I've seen is, independent filmmakers are amazing at creating resources for themselves. But then sometimes you need some money to go to Cannes Film Festival. You need some money to go to Glasgow Film Festival, Edinburgh Festival. You need some money for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at some point you need to be in the room, and you need to get yourself in that room.
Also, without money, it becomes a culture of exploitation, because everybody's kind of asking people to work for free, which is a conversation that we've had. But it's true. It's true. Like, you need the budgets, you need the money.
He was being so diplomatic, and now he just freaking threw the stone in the water.
All of the back and forth between me and you is nothing compared to that. A new beef has been created. Unlocked.
So I didn't mean for that to sound as tactless as it.
Well, but being able to pay people is what differentiates the film community and the film industry. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that said, at some point you also need some
We need
good
action.
friends.
We need action. Minks like us want to make films too.
We need capital.
I mean, but that's the thing. There's money out there to make films, but it doesn't seem like you can get money unless you already have money. You can't get awards unless you've already got awards, and it just seems closed doors everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And hence why what we're doing.
Yeah,
all the time, we do.
Yeah, we all do it.
We do Kickstarters, we do crowdfunders.
That was the point I was going to make is in Scotland as well, it's double hard because you've got to do all the business. There's not as much room to be creative because you're running around trying to network and raise money and do the marketing and do everything at once rather than just direct or be a DP or whatever. And we don't have the infrastructure to even fully be as creative as we can be, I don't think. So I think the work you're doing is amazing. It's so important. And it's doubly impressive because you're not even originally from Scotland. You've came here and saw it, and you're grabbing us and putting us all together, and
But going off the back of that, aside from officialdom, closed doors, swine people, do you think a big part of it is I'm just trying not to call people the C word or anything. Swine people, I just made that up. I'll copyright that, anyway, do you think a part of it is inherently Scottish? And I'm not talking about the industry. Like there is a sort of, like you're saying about Ward Park not having signs up and stuff. You know, Americans are very pomp and stuff. So it's just like, yeah, look at us. Whereas Scots are very more timid in a sense and reserved. And there is a sort of small town mindedness, which might... You know, if you expand on that, it might equate to small country mindedness.
Yeah,
it's also
I think that's a fair point.
It's not considered cool to big yourself up here either.
That's what I mean.
Show off, you know.
Humble.
Humble, best. It's not as nice as humble. I don't know.
But do you think there's a part of that at play, and you're sort of like coming from a different country, being like, no, you guys are great. You need to be,
People should blow their own trumpets more.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I wouldn't leave the house.
That mindset of don't put your head above the parapet or you'll get shot. Well, I feel like I did get shot a few times.
Yeah.
But I think there is something Scottish about that. I don't think I'd ever encountered that before. But I've started looking into the history of that as well, and I just had an amazing lunch with an author called Carol Craig, who set up the Wellbeing Centre for Scotland. I think 10 or 20 years ago, I can't remember, but she wrote a lot of books about Scotland and the socio-economic structure of how Scotland came to be how it is. She's an amazing woman, and I was like, within a week of moving to Carbrae, I was handed one of her books. I was like, that will tell you everything you need to know about Scotland. And the book was The Tears That Built the Clyde. So that was and that was really, really interesting. So I think I get a level of why the mindset and what sort of how it came to be. But if I can help shake things up, then I will, because maybe that's why I went to America first. Like the whole, blow your own trumpet and say, light the beacon, they will come, or build it, they will come. Like that was my philosophy behind Pioneer, 100%. It's like, if I light the beacon, the industry will come and form itself and all of that, And so, that's actually kind of, I love that scene in The Return of the King. Yeah. When they literally light the beacons. And I feel like across Scotland, that's what could be happening. You light those fire at the top of a mountain, and maybe like someone else will see it and will light their own. And, that's
I mean, the community is very connected. Like people are definitely, everybody's watching what each other are doing, but also interacting. And I think it's weird because it's one of those things where it feels small when you start to kind of connect all the people together. But it also feels like you just keep uncovering more pockets of like people that are working away and doing things like, all the stuff that's going on in Kirkcaldy and stuff like that. So it is, so it's that kind of, it's that dual dissonance of something it feels vast, but it also feels quite small and like a small community.
That's what I was meaning earlier when I said the minute you start doing it, you just go out and start creating, you become part of that community very quickly. And you're, just by doing it.
If we were to try and wrap up, not immediately, like got some minutes to play with. What are your dreams going forward with what you're trying to achieve, or in general?
Yeah, thank you. I think that business point is very interesting because I kind of started identifying as a accidental businesswoman because I had to. Like, you know, if I wanted to have that impact and build that legacy and all of that, then, you know, you need to master the business world to some extent. So I think the ultimate goal right now is building a funnel for that money to make its way through to independent filmmakers, and nurture the talent that I can see around me. So recently I started working with Gary Fraser. Gary won a BAFTA and had a very rough few years after that. And even when I start talking to people about Gary, you know, people talk about the way he talks, or in terms of the accent, or just, you know, like the background, or, you know, and that's fine, but that's also what makes his experience so rich and so interesting. And he should have a voice, and, you know, just like you guys have a different voice. And if I can find a way to build a funnel so that you guys and we, because I want to make films, I mean, that's my ultimate, actually, all of that is to ultimately make what I want to make and what I want to see. So yeah, but just for some reason, I feel really passionate about building that structure and that ecosystem, because I'm not interested in just going out to make my own stuff at the moment, because where would it end up? Like, I don't know. I feel like together we rise. Yeah. And it sounds corny and like a sticker, you know, like a label, but I do really feel that we're stronger together, and together we'll rise. So if we can all help each other with that structure, and then, you know, find the money to inject in that structure, then Scotland will be in a good place, I think.
So there's been a lot of Lord of the Rings isms here. So if we were all marching into
one ring to bind them, or
the Scottish Gondor of film,
I love that.
Right? Yeah. Who do you see as everybody?
Is this the Elrond Council? That's it. You have a Gandalf vibe about you. Maybe it's the hair, or maybe a hobbit. Because you're kind of
No, the dwarfs had dreads as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I thought,
you were thinking dwarf?
No, well, I was like, I hope I'm not the angry dwarf. Just like,
no one gives me money to make a film. Give us money to make a film.
I mean, I don't want to plough straight in and say it after.
Yeah, you're in the bad books already.
But he's in the bad books now.
Well, I thought he was in your bad books forever.
Oh, no. It's probably a good thing. But it's just like when you guys were also touching on stuff that I probably...
Sandy, you're an elf. I don't know, you got that. We all got that, right?
Yeah. Ethereal.
Yeah.
Timeless.
What's his name? The Sir Lancelot. Orlando
Legolas.
Bloom. Yeah.
Legolas.
I'll take that. That's a compliment.
And Ian, I think you're... I don't know, either Viggo Mortensen or Sean Bean.
I could be human. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
With that kind of
Sean Bean means you die.
That's true.
Oh, let's go for Viggo. Return of the King.
I do love a bit of Shawnee, though.
And if you had one piece of advice for anyone trying to start out in film,
that's an important one. I kind of want to go biblical on that one, like, know thyself. Because I think in the end, no one can have any kind of impact on you negative if you know yourself. And then, you know, you won't give away what you shouldn't give away, basically. So I think the core of it is, and it, you know, it will impact whether you go to film school or not. It will impact, you know, if you know your learning style, if you know kind of, the basics of who you are, then, you know, you're pretty much sorted. Or at least if you have that quest in you to kind of, keep on developing yourself and finding yourself.
Quest spelled with a C, like your name.
Oh, yeah.
I see what you did there. I'll take it.
That could be your nickname, your Lord Questor. Right.
I'll take it.
Maureen Questor.
Well, I was going to say, I think your story, the story you've told us today anyway, is inspirational for people that are starting out, because it contains so many moments where you've just pivoted. You've just sort of said, okay, you know, I still believe in the same thing that I wanted to do. And if that doesn't work, we go this direction. If that doesn't work, we go this direction. And it's staying positive and staying, keeping that belief. Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Maureen.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's been bits of this I thought were quite emotional, and I got goosebumps. It was brilliant. I really liked it.
The first female guest.
I do have a soft side. I'm not just this roguish brute who offends people and makes crass films.
Are you sure the goosebumps weren't because it's like -5?
Dude, you've no idea how many layers I'm wearing. Legit. I thought you were so great on the show. We should definitely have you back. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, folks? Yep. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that nonsense that my 6-year-old watches on YouTube.
Whoa!